hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
All right, welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem Radio Show. It is January 29th, 2023. The first month of the year is over already. I cannot believe it. Last year felt the drag on to me, I guess because it was supposed to be my last year working and I was retiring January 1st. But then I had to go for some procedures and a surgery, so I kind of extended it till March 1st to get them all in while I still had my really good medical coverage. I don't know what I'm going to have when I retire, so I figured I'd do it now, but it just dragged on. Now that I'm getting close, I'm down to my last 4 weeks of work. I'll be retired. My last day is actually February 24th, and I'm off the last 2 days of February before I'm officially off forever. So, but now it's really going quick, and I'm kind of happy in a way, but I'm also kind of sad because I actually like my job, but it's time to pack it in after 34 years and move on. Hey, well, listen, we got a great show for everybody tonight. Kurt Phillips from Witchkiller, Warhag, Ace Koden is going to be calling in about 45 minutes or so. We'll do it in the middle of the show because Kurt is our only guest tonight, so we'll have more time to talk if he wants to. We haven't had Kurt on in about 4 or 5 years, so it'd be good to catch up with him and see what's going on with him musically. Right there, Warlock, Burn the Witches, Doro Pesh. I love Doro. I think Doro has been on my show more than any other guest we've had. It might be a tie between Hut, Chuck Billy, and Steve Gaines from Abattoir and Anger Reside. I think I've had them all on over a dozen times. Love talking to each and every one of them, especially Doro. She is such a sweetheart, so mild-mannered when you're talking to her, and she remembers everything about you, from interview to interview, from year after year. It's just great. I know when my wife already has my next wife picked out for when she passes away, who she wants me to be with me and take care of me, but I know it wasn't Doro, but that would be my pick. All right, we're going to keep the music flowing here for the next half hour or so until we talk to Kurt. Let me see what I got lined up next. We got our Demolition segment. We're going to get back into playing a couple of demos each week off of different bands. I've been working hard at transferring a lot of the old cassettes. I think I'm losing more to old age, and the material just deteriorated than I'm actually getting them to transfer, but we did come up with quite a few good ones. We'll play a few of them a little later on in the show. But how about we do some Steeler right now? Chains Are Broken.
They can go away from the dirty south.
getting stoned. Balls of crying cause of the buds, flying high into the sun. Serving heaven might suit so well, leading the boys around the ruling hell. Looking for trouble, I'm warning you. You'll be dealing with the casket grill. Live your life by your will, learn to be an animal. By the lights of the moon, beware the legion of doom.
Classic, Steel Assassin, Fallen Steel. They are the most inactive, active band out there. I mean, I shouldn't say because nobody knows what's going on. A lot of these bands, things happen as we get older. They have health issues, personal problems. I haven't heard anything from Steel Assassin in a very long time. I think 2012, when World War II Medal of Honor came out, that was the last I heard of anything from the band. So who knows? But they did put out three great records over that decade, going back to War of the Saints and Hellfire Forge. It was most of the original band with a new singer. I think it was John Falzone from Trip Hammer who took over around that time, and I don't know if he's still with the band. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with them at all, but they were definitely a solid act. And before that, we had some Carnival with Legions of Doom. We're going to get to our demolition segment. I started doing this in the beginning of the show, like almost 15 years ago, where I would play a demo tape every week and then put it up on my website for people to download. But I got to be a pain in the ass after a couple of years because back then, everybody was complaining about the downloading and stuff like that, and sites were taking, when you put up a link in the site that you hosted it on, whether it was MediaFire or TurboFire, one of those other sites back then, they would take it down, and people would just email you or call you constantly. Can you re-upload this? Can you re-upload that? So I just got rid of the whole thing altogether because it was getting to be a pain in the ass, and I just put up a lot of the demos on one of the tape trading sites that I'm on so people could get them over there. But we're going to start doing it again. We're just not going to put the downloads up. If somebody wants something, just, email me at the show's website or get me on Facebook if you want, and I'll send you a link to a copy of the full demo if you want. But we did it to kind of honor the old Metal Forces demolition segment. That's why we call it the demolition segment here. That was where you came across some of the greatest bands ever back then. I mean, they were all new and young. They were sending their demo tapes to Metal Forces. They had the demolition piece where they write about the band, the demo, good or bad, you got attention from it, and you're able to buy the demo from those bands. And I picked up a lot over the years, more so from tape trading with pen pals, but I did buy quite a few of them from the bands back in the day, and it was a great segment in that magazine. I'm missing one Metal Forces. I think it's issue 15, I believe. I think it was SOD was on the cover. And King Fowley, who does like an auction every now and then, a lot of his old stuff, had it up on his page the other day, and I put in a bid for it, but my number didn't get it. It's like an auction. He just picks a number from 1 to 100. Whoever's the closest wins, and I missed it. I have to see who won it and see if they want to sell it, because that's the only Metal Forces I'm missing out of, I think, the first 3 or 4 years that the magazine came out. I have every issue but that one. I mean, I probably had it back then. I just don't know what happened to it. Over 30, 40 years, a lot of things get misplaced, but I was able to get most of it together. And I found actually one on eBay. They very rarely pop up, that one issue in particular. And the guy had that and a lot of them. But man, they want like $40 to $60. Some of them are $80 or $90. I'm like, that's crazy. Even when I had to pick up a few that I was missing on eBay, I paid maybe like $15, 20 something with shipping. That was just insane to pay that much money. Oh my dear Lord in heaven. But I'll get a copy of it somewhere. All right, let's get back to our demos. Last week we had Gary on from Child Saint. He was talking about, being friends with Katen in high school and everything. We got into a little bit of the Hyrax talk, and he had a band called Chaos before Hyrax. I think it was even before he did KGB. I think it was Chaos. And they changed it to LA Chaos because there was another Chaos in California at the time. They put out a great demo tape, and here's the song Life Goes On off of that. Listen to the words to the song. They mean a lot today, especially as we get older. They were kids back then, but they kind of knew where life was going. So here you go, LA Chaos, Kate Independent on vocals, and I think bass guitar, Life Goes On.
Around.
That was Highlight out of Sweden. I mean, there were actually two highlights. The other one came out of Stockholm. This highlight is one word, highlight. The other band was high and light. Two words. They only have the two demo tapes. This was off of A Night at Valhalla from 1983. The song was called Children of the Brave, and they followed it up a year later with Bring on the Terror demo and Disappeared. And I've been trying to find a member of this band. The band they were a three-piece band. They were three brothers. I found, I think, one of them on Facebook, but I never got a response years ago. Maybe I'll try again. Some of these names are very common in these countries, so like when you go to type it in, 400 people will come up, and you don't know which one it is, and you try to match like their face with the picture from when they were younger. It's funny, but it was a really good demo tape, and I transferred this one, and I'm working on Bring on the Terror. I'll probably do that this week, and maybe somewhere down the line we'll get that in the demolition segment. I spent the last couple of weeks trying to like dig up some classic underground bands from the 80s to bring on the show, and I was able to secure a few of them, and get dates locked down, so we're set to go. And, I talk to Jeremy from Heaven Hell Records all the time, and, we both kind of go through the same thing, because he looks for underground bands for his label, to put albums on. I look for them to come on the show as guests, and I always try to find bands that nobody else has or goes for, knows about, or remembers. That's one of the things I like doing about the show, because that's the era of music I grew up in. Sometimes you got to be part detective, and I love when I can find somebody and not just go on Facebook, because a lot of these guys aren't on Facebook. I mean, they're like from a generation where they didn't grow up with social media, and they can care less about it. But I locate them and I reach out to them, and sometimes like I'll email them or I'll text them if I get a phone number, and I'll get a response like within minutes from them. Saying, "Oh, I can't believe you remember my band. Thank you very much," and we talk, and I can set up an interview right then and there on the spot and get them to come on the show. Other ones respond right away, and then they disappear for months on end, and they don't get back to you. And Jeremy goes through the same problem where, you get commitments from bands like, yeah, I want you to put my music out and have a record. Then they disappear for the longest time. You call them, you email them, you respond to them, they don't get back to you. And, I haven't gone through that in a long time, because last year when we came back on the air, almost all the interviews that we did were coming through record labels, A&R people, radio promotion companies. There were only a handful of interviews that I set up on my own with people that I knew, or, groups that I've been looking to get on the show. But this year I wanted to go back to the old way of doing it and searching for everybody myself, and I forgot what a nightmare it can be. You get commitments from people, yeah, I'd love to be on your show, let me know what you have and what we can do, and then you never hear back from them. And after you email them 2 or 3 times or leave them voicemails, you just like, you're throwing a tag. It's like, how many times can I call this person without them calling back to me? So hopefully a few of those that I did get out there, will come back through. I do see that a lot of them just didn't get the messages, because I asked for like a return receipt. They just haven't received them yet. So if they do, we should have a few good interviews coming up in February and March. We'll have to see. All right, we got a lot of new music to get to tonight. I'm not going to do it now because we're going to call Kurt in about 10 minutes. So we'll play a few more tunes between now and then we're going to have a bunch of new music from Motorhead. It's not really new. It was old, but it wasn't released. Night Demon, Tigers of Pang Tang, New Overkill. We'll play that after the interview. So let me see what we can do right now. How about some Rapid Tears? It's been a long time since I played them on the show. Cry for Mercy. Witchkiller, begging for mercy. I wanted to do more, but it's almost 6:45 here in New York, so we're going to reach out to Kurt in a minute or two. I saw Sortilege has a brand new record coming out called Apocalypso. They've had a few records out over the years. Hopefully this one will be pretty good. We'll see. I think the singer is the only original member left in the band, and I guess that's all that matters, right? Who knows? And, the talk is that Mark Lopes of Roster Boss Band is the new singer for Metal Church. The band hasn't announced it yet. They will be playing at the Legions of Metal Festival, the first show with the new singer. I don't know when they plan on announcing who it'll be. People are going by what the clip that they play sounds like, and it does have a little bit of a sound there. Who knows? It could have been the band leaking it also. He might be the new singer. He might not be. We'll probably find out in the next month or two because they're going to talk about the new record coming out and the first show they're doing with the new singer. So we'll see what happens there. I got a lot of things to complain about. We'll get to it after the interview. But right now, let's get Kurt on the line. Let's get this interview going. So bear with me while we dial him up here a second, and we'll start.
Hello.
Kurt, it's Mike. You're on the air live, my friend. How are you?
I am awesome, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's about time we got to speak live again. We do too much talking with words on the computer, but it's great to have you back on here. It's been about 4 or 5 years, I think.
Oh, it's been that long? How's that even work? Where does that time even go?
It goes by way too. I wish it went by that quick when I was 16 years old, waiting to turn 18 to have a beer. But it seems to go by a lot quicker as we get older.
Indeed. So what's going on over there?
Things are pretty good over here. I'm doing good. I'm talking to you, and I'm happy. It's the last time we spoke. I believe you had the whole original lineup on the last time. It was, I think, the year before you guys are getting ready to go over to Germany to the Keep It True festival.
I think actually we spoke after that, and the only reason I think that is because I remember you played a song, and it was my buddy Pat was singing on it, and I was working in my garage. Could that have been after that?
It might have been. I don't remember, but I'm glad that you're still out there doing it and putting out music. And I mean, it's hard to believe when you think about it. 40 years ago, you put out a couple of demo tapes and then an EP, and then the band kind of disappeared. But 40 years later, people still remember that record, remember that band. And I'm talking about Witchkiller, which kind of got it all started for you. 40 years later, that one EP is still up there on everybody's playlist. It's absolutely amazing what good music can do and how long it can carry on for.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It's kind of totally head scratching. I read. Do you know Laurent Ramadier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he does a snake pick thing, and I got a couple of because he was kind enough to do some stuff on Witchkiller, and I got a couple of his encyclopedias, and I read these stories about bands that I know the names of. Some of them I'd heard their music, but often, and I read the stories, and there's so many parallel stories and similar stories about bands, and you still hear them, and they maybe only did a couple of albums or a couple of just a small body of work, but it's very it's enduring, and it's like you can't even make that stuff up. It's like I don't know. To think that it's crazy.
It's very true. I mean, when you think Ottawa, Canada, 1981. I mean, this is like really the very beginning of this underground metal scene where Metallica were just coming out. Other bands were just starting to happen at that time. Nobody knew who anybody was. There was no internet. There were very few magazines. There was nothing but local fanzines of people just writing up their own stuff and printing up their own papers and sending it out to people. But Ottawa had a pretty good scene that kind of started in the early to mid 80s, and you guys were a part of that.
That's correct. We were. There is no doubt that Exciter and Annihilator are the massive impact bands, like in terms of record sales and recognition, and everything to do with that. But and there was lots of local bands, and connecting with these people was a pretty special thing. We did one show at Barrymore's supporting Exciter, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, there's wherever the scenes are, and again, the you know, you must know Wayne Archibald as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Wayne was so incredibly important in raising the flag for us, and Metal Mike Arwin, who was the person who gave the tape to Brian Slagle. You know, it's and I remember we were playing in Granby, and my girlfriend at the time, Joni, she phones me and she says, "There's this package here from this Metal Blade Records." I said, I've heard of Metal Blade Records. What is it? She opens it up and she goes, "Oh, it's a recording contract." I said, "Yeah, you should probably send it. You should probably like special delivery that to us, because of course centered out of Ottawa." So yeah, that's kind of funny. And the place that there's a live tape of us, and that live tape was recorded in the same club where the record contract was forwarded to us there. So that's kind of a thing. So whatever that is.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, yeah. But, you know, at that time, by the time you guys signed the Metal Blade, the label had already been up a few years with the Metal Massacre compilations, and they had released a few records. So they were already making a name for themselves, and they were pretty much a well-known label at that time. So when you get that contract, you know, do you say, "Hey, you know, we don't care what's in there. We're going to sign it because we're going to get a record out," or do you really like go through it, like, you know, and kind of pick apart things, and they're saying this is no good, that's no good, and
no,
I didn't think so.
I'm 20 years old. I'm
Yeah.
Skinny rock guitar player, metal guitar player. All I want to do is be part of creating music, and you know, a recognized label sends you a contract, and I mean, you just sign it because, you know, you think this is what's kind of funny, because you think, okay, like a super prominent label sent us a recording contract. We should maybe wait and see who else would do that. No,
Yeah.
Why would you do something that logical?
It's true. But, you know, when you think about it, back then, like you said, we had Metal Blade. Roadrunner was just, you know, getting up and running. We had Megaforce here with Johnny Z in New York and New Jersey, who was running that label. Most of these people back then were just fans of the music who were able to, like, you know, get into the scene and start a label from scratch. They really weren't looking to screw bands over or to make money off of them. They were doing it for the same reason bands were doing it. They just wanted to get that music out there. They really weren't looking to hurt a band. They weren't like a major label or a major company would try to take advantage of you. They were just fans of the music themselves and wanted to get out, you know, get these albums released. Say, "I got a record label." Like you would say, "I'm in a band."
Yeah, I think that there's a significant element of that, but I think that when so I want to choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to be misconstrued by what I'm saying, because it would be unfair and untrue. The thing is that we gave up our control over our music, and that was really an error on our part, because I think that could have been negotiated differently. And so I want to be super clear about what I'm saying, which is not to be pointing any fingers at anyone but our youthful ignorance. So I want to be super specific about that. So and then again, because I think that on one hand you think this is what we've done, but then you can't really believe that it's possible. And then you think about, well, what could we really do? You know, and it's like, wow, you can make an EP and then get some money from that and then make a full album. But I mean, certainly that was not in any way predicating the demise of Witchkiller in its original format. That there was other things that were imposing upon that to bring that to go. But you know, I gotta say this, Mike. It thrills me to no end, and I don't want to. I am really proud that we did Day of the Saxons, and that Brian Slagle still puts that song on all his compilations, and so that's a super cool thing, and that propels me to constantly try and create music, because you go, hey, you know, I did that. I could probably use that as a slingshot to try and write songs that good or better, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, okay, I did that once. It's possible to do it twice.
Oh, absolutely. And, when you were saying, like, signing away the rights to the band, let's be honest, that was kind of par for the course back then with almost every label. When you signed with that label, they owned your rights. And that's why a lot of bands, like 20, 30 years later, they couldn't get the rights back to the song, so they went and re-recorded everything so they could have it back that way. That was just, kind of the business model back then. It's not like anybody tried to do anything. It's just the way it was.
Exactly, and I agree. And that's why it's important that what I'm saying is not being misconstrued. Because that and anyway, the thing is, even if that was the case, I would not have signed that on a second record because you would have known better. So, and hey, I mean, the album's out there, people know it. Like, I'm 62 years old and a super awesome metalhead like myself with an awesome beard, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, a maximum awesome chin. We talk, and that's money in the bank for me as a person that's creating music. So.
Oh, absolutely. And, the last time when we had the whole band on here, I didn't want to really get into the specifics of why the band broke up because I don't want to ruffle any feathers on anybody who might have been the cause of
Sure.
it. But, in 1985, it did come to an end. Was there anything going on before the band actually broke up where there was a second record in the works or anything happened that was about to break, but then things just fell apart?
Well, so again, reading all these snake pit stories, it's just like, oh wow, look, there's a carbon copy of my reality. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's 78 in this.
Yeah.
In this comp. So really, what it became was, so Steve and I were very close when I ended up in the band. So I joined Steve Backey on drums and vocals, and John Meharry on bass, and then I was the guitar player, and then. We got Joey Turan singing and another guitar player, Bruce Goodman, who was such a great guitar player. And then that moved along. That was not the right formula. And then we recruited Doug Adams. And so on and on we went. And really what happened was we did the album, and we got signed and we did the album, and we ended up kicking John out of the band, and which was very difficult to do because John was the person you want in a band. He did everything. He was a nice guy, everything like this, but he just didn't have the chops to do the material. That's it. And so we fired him, and then we got Todd, and that went along, and then there was everyone wasn't pulling the oars in the same direction about the direction of the band. And then Steve, some other things transpired. Steve issued me an ultimatum that I was not comfortable with, and then I just bailed. And then I went down and played in a band, another metal blade band in Los Angeles. So if someone said to me, would you have done anything differently? And it would have been, I would have made a significantly more of an effort to realign Steve and I back to where we were, because we were the major songwriters of the band. And I'm a 20-year-old kid. I'm selfish, snot-nosed punk that's defiant. I was probably passive-aggressive, and so that's kind of where it went. And then nothing happened until I didn't speak to Steve again after that until like 2011, which is more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So Steve and I get on well now. We had we chatted and worked a lot of things out, and that was. It would be true to say that in 2017, when we were rehearsing down in Las Vegas at Doug's house, Doug was there, Todd was there, I arrived, and we waited for Steve, and I just couldn't wait Steve and I had talked on the phone, and everyone had talked on the phone. We had the conversation with you, blah, 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 everything was there. And I just couldn't wait to see Steve in person again. And when I saw Steve in person again, it was just like, because I really feel that Steve and I had a great writing, the way we wrote music. Sometimes we'd write stuff separately, and then we'd get together and we'd help each other finish songs. Sometimes we wrote stuff separately, and that's just how it was. But back then, I didn't have the capacity. Steve, I think it would be true to say Steve probably didn't have the capacity either, although not to speak directly for Steve. How many 20-year-old people, and Steve was even younger than I am, so how many people at that age, have really good reconciliation skills or anything like that? So, yeah.
Sure, it's the teenagers. That's just the way it goes. Because when you, like it says, when you read those articles and it's like the same story over and over again, it usually is. Like, sometimes it's like the most minor disagreement within a band that breaks them up, or a lot of times the big thing is things just weren't going nowhere. They couldn't get any traction going. They couldn't get signed. They couldn't get a label. They couldn't get the right people to help them out. And it's more often that than like these big stories you want to hear about two members fist fighting or they something the other guy's girlfriend and they broke up. It's a lot of little things that lead to these things happening, and it's sad. But like I said, everybody was a kid back then. We didn't know any better.
Yeah. So where things are now, that's the everything is in a good place to me, like in terms of where things could be, and I'm satisfied with that, and I'm mostly happy that Steve and I we chat regularly on the phone about stuff, and not so much specifically Witchkiller music or anything like that, but so I live in Victoria, BC, Canada, which is on Vancouver Island, just across from Seattle, and he lives in Sarasota, and I phone him when the weather's not good and I'm worried about him and all that, and see how his dogs are and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
That's good that everybody keeps it that way, because it's as we get older, it's important to keep in touch with everybody and just keep things light. And it's funny because in the last year, I think I interviewed 3-4 bands from the Ottawa area of Canada, who all of those members, most of those bands are still active. They've all moved to British Columbia. Is British Columbia like the Florida of Canada, where everybody moves out of the north to go down to the better weather in the south?
No, it's the California of.
It's the California.
Yeah, and the it is true that there is East Coast mentalities and West Coast mentalities. Like, so I have a guitar store out here, and I get a lot of people from up the coast. So from Seattle, from Portland, a lot of people from California. Very similar, generally similar outlooks on life.
Yeah,
and it's not better or worse. It's just there's a commonality that living on a coast, and I think that's the same on the East Coast, but just a different version of that because that's how that works, right? So,
absolutely. In New York, when somebody says good morning to you, your first response is F you. There's no good morning back.
Yeah.
It's a whole different breed of people. Yeah. That's the way we are. Kirk, I think about it, everything comes to an end with Witchkiller, and, things go on. It seems like you stepped into the fire, because then after that, you did a little stint in Savage Grace, and I can only imagine what it was like dealing with Chris Logan at that time. I think he was like the last original member of Savage Grace at that time, where he was keeping it going.
Well, I will address that with this phrase. I am eternally grateful that Chris gave me an opportunity to go down and play there. I played on the Troubadour. I opened for Slayer the day before my birthday. Just hang on a sec. One sec. What's up, buddy? Oh, my great-grandson's here.
Good.
He's a lot of fun. He's wondering what Pa's up to.
Beautiful.
So Chris was not the kind of person I would choose to be in a band with again. And I'm probably not the only person that feels that way. But it would be, it's just like, geez, Chris, why did you, we're in, Los Angeles, right? So There's freaking better guitar players flipping burgers at 7-Eleven than me. Why did I move down here for this? Like, why did we go through all this effort? But again, I met some great people. I chatted with Brian East a couple months ago, maybe 8 months ago. And if I hadn't gone to California, I wouldn't have come to British Columbia. And that's a pretty good return on investment for the cover charge.
That's true. That's true. And I have to tell you, right after that, you did Ace Koden. And this is a band that, to me, should have exploded. I mean, the music was there. I think everything was there. Just it didn't happen at the time. But, how did Ace Koden come about? And I don't know if you talked to Jeremy because he's looking to get a hold of this stuff.
Oh yeah, we chatted.
Good.
We chatted a couple times, and we have an ongoing conversation. I may have to find some stuff in my archives. So this is, you can't even make this stuff up. So I moved back. I moved from. So when I moved from Ottawa to Los Angeles, my girlfriend at the time, Joni, her dad lived in Victoria. So we moved here. I moved down to Los Angeles, and then I came back. And then I very immediately met Tonihjts, who's the drummer, and Dwayne Nickel. And and I'm talking like probably within 2 weeks at the most. And within 2 weeks after that, we were jamming together. Because basically what it was a lot, the lineage that runs from Witchkiller to Ace Koden to Warhag is a pretty straight line, because I had written a bunch of songs that Savage Grace was completely uninterested in doing. I came back here. I showed them to Tony and to Dwayne, and Dwayne was a guitar player at the time, and he switched to bass to play with us, and so we got together and we played, and it was freaking awesome. Because I think the number one thing for successful bands, or one of the number one things, has to be people enjoy playing the material. And so I happen to have a lot of material, and Tony is one of the most, as a drummer, was one of the most musical guys, because even though I don't think he really played another instrument at that time. He was really steeped in a lot of the same music, and Dwayne was the youngest, sharp guy, really good, really great musician, and we were able to coalesce with. They really liked the riffs that I played for them, and we were able to make them do to really get some traction with that. And then we had Chrissy Southern, who's Chrissy Steele, is from Victoria, and she sang with us for a bit, and we knew that she would not be with us probably for a long time. But I mean, what a wicked singer. And I always liked the idea of having a female in a metal band, because back then it wasn't like super common. It's significantly more common now.
Yeah, sure.
Like, so that got it. And then there's another local singer, Doug Simpson, and he's the guy that sang on Man of War. And Doug was like a super Dio guy, and so in the circle of people that played around here was Dave Davis and Wayne Darley, both who ended up in Annihilator. And so we would all be jamming together and doing stuff, and Doug would come in and sing. And was it you that sent that link to Jeremy about the Doug singing the Ace Koden stuff?
Oh yeah, you had a couple of songs up, like from a cassette deck you recorded it on. Yeah,
and that cassette deck was the same one that I sent you that Thunderflight, that 2-minute instrumental. So Doug would sing with us a lot, as just a jamming kind of thing. And Chrissy sang with us, and we opened for Kick Axe down at the local club here. And then Chrissy was Tom Vermeulen showed up, and he was singing in a band called Reform School. And so Chrissy ended up in reform school with Joey Wook, who was ended up the guitar player, and Chrissy Steele. What a wicked guitar player! Wow, that guy was like freaking awesome. And then Tom sang with us, and then that's sort of what happened. And then Ace Koden came. That was the kind of thing. And then so then when we moved to Vancouver, and that's where the band collapsed because we just couldn't get gigs. But we also had another guitar player that joined us there, a gentleman named Greg Lowe. And man, to play with Greg, I don't generally. I'm a middling guitar player, but I don't generally like to play with other guitar players because I find it really a lot of work. But I will tell you this, Mike, playing with Greg Lowe was not to suggest the skill level, but he was the Dave Murray to my Adrian Smith, as it were, right? Two very different styles, but just kind of, drinking the same Kool-Aid. So that collapsed, and then I became a sales rep, and then I ended up buying a guitar store in Kelowna, which is it's the interior. It's kind of like Canada's Napa Valley, and then that's where Warhag came from, and then brought the songs that were started with Ace Koden to fruition. So basically, Warhag is just an extension of Ace Koden, and Ace Koden was just a band that got together with the songs that I had written for that some of them that would have been on the full length or the second Witchkiller album if that had continued.
You can see the straight line, like you said, that goes between all three bands, but I think each band was so different in its own right, sound-wise. And when it came time to Warhead and the music for that comes out, to me it has this big, orchestrated, operatic, European sound to it. I mean, you could hear what was there before and what kind of like went with it, but I think you took that to a whole different level musically than what you did with the last two bands.
Yeah, because so there was such incubation, like Rage of Angels. I rewrote that song I don't know how many times. Into the Castle is completely different, although it's very similar, and that's because I really got into. I always felt that that I had in my brain that it would be two guitar players in a band. So I always wrote as if I was schizophrenic and I'd be this guitar player or that guitar player. But then I'm going to jump ahead here and then I'm going to go back to there. When that remix that was a new version of Rage of Angels that has Danny Dean singing on it, that Gord remixed, it was so crushing. And it was not a two-guitar band. It was just freaking like Sanhedrin or Rush or just a trio. And Gord heard Warhag in a completely different thing. And I'm going to tell you this, all music going forward is not going to be as if I'm two guitar players. All the stuff I'm going to record from now on is going to be as if there's one guitar player in the band.
Wow.
And that's because I love all the orchestration. Like, man, hearing this stuff and doing this dual guitar stuff, and that's really great. But it's not replicable. First of all, it's unlikely I'm going to do any live shows, but that's not the point. I create music because some people go golfing, some people go scuba diving, some people go fishing. I write music, So, but the sound of that bass was like frick, and this is the saddest part. This, Mike, this is it. So, okay, let me get back to. I'll get to the sad part after. I'm going to get back to the chatting about the Ace Koden stuff and stuff like that. So as I matured as a player and a producer and everything, I heard all these much more sophisticated stuff. I wanted to have some clean guitar here and a distorted guitar over here or an acoustic passage here or whatever. And it developed to a more mature thing. So when I was chatting with Jeremy, he made the exact same observation you did. And I thought, wow, that's kind of funny. I thought it was getting heavier. It was actually getting just more orchestrated.
It's heavier, but there's a lot going on to it. I guess that's one of the things that's nice about being in a studio where you can kind of put together all your thoughts and ideas and create it like that, where you don't have to kind of worry about recreating it live.
Yes, yeah. But then live, then when you strip it down though, it's more menacing, I think, than when you strip it down to do that. So that's sort of the evolution. Like Ace Koden was at that point was exactly perfect because there was no other guitar player that was available. So that's why it has Ace Koden has the same DNA as Witchkiller in that it's just a trio with a singer. But there was no singer on the stuff I did, but the stuff that Doug did. And then, like I said, as it went forward, then it became like I hear all this lush stuff, and like I'm super into like production. Like so, I'm listening to Martin Birch and Chris Angarides and all these producers that I love, and all the ones that everybody else loves this kind of music. So I would hear all this stuff, and it's like, well, I'll be this guy over here, and I would record a track with my G&L Strat and through like my Rivera Kiana, and then this other one over here is my Les Paul or my Hamer, and it's through a Trace Elliott valve amp, and this guitar here is going to have like this clean pad with this delay and chorus, and this one over here is going to have like this crunch, and it's great, but it's like, I mean, I have all these scribblers that have notes in there. It's like, oh yeah, because I can't remember all this stuff because there's just like too much stuff.
Yeah, as we get older, it gets hard to remember things that we just said about a day ago. It happens. But, for people that aren't aware, you were just talking about, Rage of Angels with Gord. We're talking about Gord Kirsch, from, the Exalted Pile Driver, for people that don't know who we're talking about, who sadly passed away last year. He kind of lost his fight with cancer. And you guys were working on some stuff, not long ago before that came about.
Yeah. So backstory is Gord and I were Gord was my first guy that was like, I was super into music with together. He introduced me to Iron Maiden, and I introduced him to Blue Oyster Cult and Alice Cooper and Kiss and all that stuff that you listen to. And I dated his sister. We were really close and grew up together and did stuff. And then as we grew, we played in different bands because there was just a divergence of what we wanted to achieve. And then I moved away, and he did his stuff, and I think he played bass and Fist and did all this other stuff, and Convict and Dogs with Jobs and blah, 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 and all that stuff. But we always stayed in touch over the years. And so, of course, social media was super great for that. And so we would chat about stuff. And so I wrote this song called Glory Bound, and it's actually kind of it's an interesting song because it's 7.5 minutes long, and it's kind of cool. And I sent it to him, and like I'm singing on it, and I'm not the greatest singer, although I do have to say some parts actually came out not too bad. But it was with a drum machine, and there was so I sent it to him, and he said, I really, really want to work on this song. And I will tell you this, Mike, nothing as a person. Like, I'm not talking about my relationship with my wife or anything like this. When someone says, I want to create music with you, there is no higher compliment. There is no higher. That is, and when it's a close friend and a mentor and that. And so we talked about it, and then we talked about having Lance Chalmers play drums on it because Lance was from our area too, and we grew up together, and so anyway, so I sent him that and he was working on it, and this is after then he had his operation, and he was recovering, and then he just said, hey, do you mind if I do a remix of Rage of Angels as well? And I said, he goes, I got some ideas. And I said, oh, sure, no problem. And then so he sent him the Glory Bound stuff, and he was going to play bass on it, and we weren't sure who was going to be the singer, but we had a couple of ideas. And then then he phones me. He goes, "Hey, I did I got this the remix of Rage of Angels," and he sent it to me. I said, "That's cool, but blah blah blah." And he said, "Oh yeah, no problem." And so then he sent me a WeTransfer of the version of Rage of Angels that I sent to you.
Yeah.
And then he died, and then he passed away the next day. And it's like, and he told me, he said, "Man, like I kept a screenshot of the last text that I have from Gord." And he just said, "I beat the cancer, but he was just having problems breathing and all this." And he told me that. And I'll tell you, Mike, and I'm almost crying right now, when I got that mix and I listened to it and it blew my mind. And the next day he passed away. And it was actually Danny Dean, who's a friend of, who grew up with us in Ottawa as well. He lives out here. Awesome Aerosmith singer. He does a tribute to Van Halen called Dan Halen because his name is Danny Dean.
Yeah.
Danny called me because Lance had called him, and Lance was his closest friend. And I realized, he made sure that was done, even when he was feeling poorly. I don't know that he knew how imminent it might be that he might pass on, but it's just, I listened to it and I just went, man, like, you can't even make this stuff up. It's like, broke my heart, but what a gift, right? And so I decided that we were going to complete Glory Bound, and then I'm writing another song called No More Earthbound for Gord that just came into my into me, and it's outside of anyone in my family, my mom and dad passing away, nothing rocked my world like Gord's passing, and it is an honor. It's an honor to do a tribute to him through creating music that we were going to create together. So that's next up on the roster for sure.
Absolutely. Gord is one of those guys who I feel was completely underrated in our scene. I mean, the stuff he did and put out there. I had Gord on the show a few times over the years. He was always a fun guy to talk to. And on top of that, what he did musically was just, I don't think it got the credit it deserves. And hopefully now it will. And, Rage of Angels is one of those songs that really, I mean, that's had a lot of legs over the last couple of decades, different versions of it. And I think this is one of the strongest ones, I think. And I hate to say that because, the original version is the one that I grew up. It's just amazing, this version of it.
Yeah, it is by far the strongest because it's, although I would say that Pat, who's also known as Kyle Scorch, sang Rage of Angels as good as Danny, for sure. Like, just in terms of technical delivery, that the undergirding of the way that he mixed it's freaking. I heard it and I just went, that is so fierce. I can't even believe it. And Gord always was a leader in creating music. Of course, he was a big fan of comedy and Frank Zappa, but Gord's contribution to metal will be known forever. Like, it's not gonna lose any legs at all. And,
no, he was
larger
than life.
Yeah, I'm glad you and I actually listened to a couple of interviews. I actually listened to your interview with Denise from Session. Yeah, and I listened to a couple of the ones that you did with Gord, and Gord is the funniest guy, and he was never obscure about where he stood on anything.
True. That's true.
He
was a character. I remember I told him, I said, you're the only guy that made El Duce from the Mentor say, damn. I mean, he was that kind of guy, but he's definitely going to be missed, But I'm glad that this song is here for people to hear because it's going to just keep, his vision alive just that much longer.
Yeah, and the I'm hoping that we can do the Glory Bound track. I've got a couple of people in mind with people from Ottawa that grew up in Ottawa. I'm hoping that I've talked to a few people, and then that we'll be able to get it together and complete the song in honor of Gord's life in Ottawa and all these people that he impacted so positively. So, yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. And Curry, a while back you sent me Man of War. You're working with Doug Simpson on that. An old friend and colleague of yours
Yeah.
musically. Not metal
Yeah.
by any sense of the way, but
Oh,
what a great song. And I can really see you doing a lot more stuff like that and in that vein. I mean, is that something that's interesting to you?
yeah. Well, actually, so Doug was, as I mentioned, he was one of the guys that would come and sing in the Ace Koden stuff and stuff. So Doug is, I love Doug, and he drives me crazy because he's so much like me. So there you have it. So Doug, of all the singers I've ever worked with, and I have worked with a lot of singers, and the most important thing to me for a singer is that they can sing great. And I'm an egregious snob when it comes to that. And so Doug, so I had sent actually a couple of other tracks. I had sent a song called Lament to him a while back because we talked about doing a Sabbath style project, and I'm kind of hoping that that's still going to transpire because I got a couple of things of that ilk. And if we have a minute or two, I want to talk about how awesome it is. Well, even if we don't, I'm just going to say this: that Black Sabbath is releasing Tony Martin era stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
Yeah.
was something that's been forgotten about for way too long. I'm glad that Tony Iommi finally realized it and got on that.
Yeah, yeah. So Doug kind of is I sent him a song and he did some work on it and I liked it, and then I said, maybe we could do stuff like this, and Doug doesn't prefer people to comment on his stuff, which I found out, and I'm okay with. So he redid that, and then so I play a lot of acoustic instrumental stuff, and that particular track is kind of weird because the music is kind of weird behind it. But I sent it to Doug because Doug, of all the singers, Doug has an uncanny ability to pull fantastic ideas out. It's like I would never have thought of that. So when I had written that song, I was going to keep it as an instrumental, which I will because I play acoustic instrumental stuff. But I sent it to Doug, and usually Doug's pretty quick, but I never bug Doug because Doug I'm always eager to hear what he has to do. I didn't hear anything for about 3 months, and that was that. And then all of a sudden he said, "Hey, I'm going to work on your track today." And then that night or the day after or whatever, he sent me this track. So I had sent him the music, just a one single live acoustic guitar with my finger picking thing. And I said, I have no title for this. I have no subject matter. I have no thoughts, zero. I'm sending you this thing. And that's what he sent back to me. I'm going to tell you, Mike, it blew my freaking mind. It's
Yeah.
like, how does it's so incredibly, it's kind of like kind of a Zeppelin song. It's got so many incredible elements in it, and it's like, the only thing I want to say is the only thing that I did on that song was write this piece of music. Everything else, every single thing else is completely 100% Doug's genius.
That's amazing. But together, it's just a great song. And, Curry, you think about, 40 years of putting out music. And like you said, there's that parallel line between Witchkiller going up to Warhag. Do you think at this point in your musical career, you've earned that opportunity to say, you know what, I'm not going to be worried about being in a band and producing albums and going out playing live. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do creatively that just grabs my attention at the time I'm doing it, whether it's something in the vein of Witchkiller, something in the vein of Warhag, or more of, what you did with Doug on there and the Man of War. Is it just at that point now where you say, I'm just putting out whatever I want to put out. I'm just going to be Kurt Phillips.
Yeah, and the good thing about lack of success is there's no pressure.
Not at all. You've had plenty in the minds of all our fans. There's a lot of people out there that haven't forgotten you at all.
Yeah. So I think that what it is there's multiple personalities. So there's my metal thing, and there's my acoustic instrumental thing, and then I do a kind of a rootsy kind of thing, and then I do a kind of a music that would be a mix of, and it has a female singer, and it would be a mix of Emmylou Harris, Chrissie Hynde, Jonette Napolitano, and Sass Jordan.
Wow.
So it's like that's the only way I can really describe it. And then, but I do have another metal album in me, and part of it will be the stuff we're doing in honor of Gord. But because I heard, do you know who Sanhedrin is?
The name sounds familiar. I just don't know why I can't put my finger on it.
So Sanhedrin, they're signed to Metal Blade Records. They're a trio from New York, and they have a female bass player who's also their singer. And I heard their album, and I just thought, I love this, because it's like metal Concrete Blonde.
Okay.
And when because I always loved Concrete Blonde because they were heavy. And James Mankey, the guitar player, was such a crazy kind of guy. So to circle back to answer your question, there is another metal album in me that I'm going to do, and it might be something that has multiple singers, or it might has something that has just one singer. I don't even know, and I don't even think about that because that's not it. Although I do have a song, and there's a BC-based metal band that has a wicked female singer, and I'm going to see if I can ask that person to sing part of a track on that. But for me to do that, I really have to have a wickedly solid track. So that's the kind of thing. So I think it's kind of like maybe Avantasia, not that kind of music, but it's like there's this collaboration of musicians, and then there's a record, and that's likely what it would have to kind of sound like. But I do stuff because that's what I do. I can't not, and I'm 62, so I'll be 63 this year. So I want to, as I nigh on retirement from the guitar store, I always wanted to do that because that's one of the things that I gave up was to record music. And I have some people that want to play. So to record music, I don't want to do most of it remotely. I want to stand in a room like I did with Steve and Doug and John Meharry. I want to stand in a room and look at each other while you're playing through these riffs, and then someone plays something they're not supposed to play, and you go, "That's what this song is missing."
Yep.
And then everyone's watching, and it's a hive mind experience where there's air moving around, and there's drums moving, and there's guitar amp moving, and there's bass players moving, and people are sweating, and everyone's looking at each other, and you're creating this music, and that's what I want to do, because that's missing. That's missing for sure.
Oh, I say that all the time. So many bands today have members, not just from different parts of the cities they live in, but from all over the world. And they do everything digitally, and it goes back and forth. And I feel like, if you're writing a guitar part, and it's got to go to the singer, then the bass player, then the drummer, and back. And everybody says, well, change this. But you're losing something. When you're all together in a room, right then and there, that's when the magic happens, in my opinion. You can easily say, oh, try this, or oh, let's put that in there. And that's how magic is created. And I think you can actually tell the difference from bands that are doing it, remotely or digitally, however you want to say it, compared to being together live. And is that one of the reasons that you think maybe like Witchkiller didn't really continue on after the reunion show because everybody was just so far apart?
No, the Witchkiller didn't continue, and I say this with no malice. It's just the reality, and this is a good thing about being this age as opposed to being the age of when Steve. That Doug is so busy with what he does. So Doug used to be a part owner of Pyrotech, so they would do all the. He was the pyro guy for Metallica for 15 or 25 years. He did. He works for Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney's one of his main clients, and he does set up their lighting show and their water and all that. Like that's what Doug does. Doug is unreal. Like it's amazing what he does, and he does like other artists of that ilk, and that's his thing. So Doug doesn't have the time to do because what you said is there may be other ways to have music be magical, but the way I want to make music magical, and I won't compromise on it, is to play the frickin' music with the people in the room. That's it.
Yeah,
and if that
true.
can't happen, that's okay. That's okay. So Todd is playing with John Ricci right now, and Jacques Belanger, and I can't remember the name of the drummer, and they're doing a band that's going to be called Power Rage. So Todd's going to be busy doing that, and he also still works for the Prime Minister's office, which does not mean he works for Justin Trudeau. It means he works for the Prime Minister's office. Whoever's the Prime Minister, that's who they take care of.
That's right.
Yeah, and then Steve's vision. Wants to do music that's a bit closer to industrial music, and I respect that, but I have no interest in doing that. The only thing that I want to do with Witchkiller, whatever it is, and I'm fine if it's Steve and I and another bass player. I prefer it to be Todd, but if the circumstances don't prevail, and I would like it to be Doug, but I don't see that as a possible thing because of how busy he is. I want to finish the song catalog that Witchkiller owes the world, which is to do Lights in the Night, to do La Guillotine, #1. That's the song that Witchkiller has to record if there's going to be another Witchkiller that I'm part of. Shadows of You, a Witchkiller version of Rage of Angels, and the 3 songs that Steve did with Dominic and Kevin Bryan and John Meharry after I was gone, which is, he has a song called Rage of Angels, which has nothing to do with the song I have, Rage of Angels. His song should be called Sinner Amongst Us, and if he's listening, I'm going to get a blistering phone call yelling at me. But that's my thought. That's all I'm saying. I'm allowed to have an opinion. And Fear the Dawn and Lizzie Borden. Nothing else, because when we were in 2017 in Las Vegas, we were working on this. The plan we had and the plan that happened was not really what it was, and we were working on these other new songs, which was a complete opposition to, but that's what the other 3 wanted to do, and that's it. And the songs, the style of the stuff was not Witchkiller style. It was more 90s, whatever the hell that is. It's not my thing. So not to be that way, but that's not my thing. And I'm only interested in doing the Witchkiller catalog, which has not been released, which needs to be released before Witchkiller does anything else. And so that's my line in the sand, and no one else has to agree with me. But if I'm going to be, and they can get another guitar player, I don't care. But if I'm going to be in it, the first song we're recording is La Guillotine. And, having opposition from the other guys, it's like, hey, most of these songs I didn't even frickin' write. I'm advocating for Steve Batke's material.
Yeah, true.
Okay?
It's true.
So, does that make me a bad guy?
Yeah, I know. I like that. I'm fighting for your music.
Yeah. So I would say the likelihood of that happening is unlikely. So the reason Witchkiller nothing went forward is because we did not have a healthy consensus of all of us, and that is not likely to happen. But under the auspices of what I just said, and I'm not trying to be a bossy child or petulant child or anything like that. I'm just saying the only thing that I'm interested in is finishing the legacy that Witchkiller owes the world in excellently recorded material of freaking songs that mostly Steve Backey wrote, and I added some parts to it, but mostly Steve Backey wrote. Well, actually, the Fear the Dawn, I was actually at least a co-writer on that, if not more than that, but that's another conversation. Is like, this is the stuff people want to hear from us. They don't want to hear this stuff we're playing in Doug's place. This is not Witchkiller material. So if that was transpired, I would be completely interested in that, and I would be as all in as if I was doing music that I wrote myself.
Hopefully that will happen one day. You never say never in this world or in this business because you never know. Tomorrow the phone can ring and something can happen. It might take 10 years. Who knows? But it would be great for that to happen. And I'm hoping that, Kurt, we get a lot of music out of you. We're going to have to wrap it up here because I only have about 15 minutes left in the show and I want to get on Rage of Angels and
Yeah,
Ace Koden and the Man of War. But when you do put that new record out there, you want to get out there with all that metal stuff, you're going to come back on here. We're going to do this again.
I will send you some secret music so you can see how it. Come on in here, buddy. Say hi, Mike.
Hello. How are
That's my
you
little
today?
Mike. How are ya?
You doing okay today?
He's doing awesome. We were rocking on the electric guitars, playing some Day of the Saxons there. He was liking that.
Nothing like the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. They keep us young and they keep us moving.
Yeah, that is correct. Mike, thank you so much for your time. It's such a pleasure chatting with you. We are incorrigible metalheads, and that's exactly perfect.
Absolutely, my friend. You have a great day. I know it's a little early over there. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll do this again soon, my friend. I'm going to get on Rage of Angels right now.
Yeah, I just want to do a shout-out to my buddy Eric Stravinsky out there, too. He's out in New York State here. I think he's on Long Island. So.
All right. You got it, buddy. Take care, Kurt. It was great talking to you again, my friend.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All right, let's get on Rage of Angels. This is with Gord Kirchen.
Then 2, 3, 4.
War's been over for so long. So many years have come and gone. The call to arms, the battle song still haunt me like it was yesterday. I sit here burning but frozen in time, just an old soldier refusing to die like this. I'm a man of war, it's what I was before. I knew love when I was younger, made so many plans before the thunder came. I watched our alliance fall as the ships filled up the sky. In a burst of fire, they took you away. Now I live this way. Born again to raise a giant army. I brought the world into the fight. I'm a man of war. Their souls into it's what I was before. Hear the call and we killed them all, and we burned their souls into the night. The night.
All right, Doug Simpson, Kurt Phillips, Man of War. Right before that, it was an instrumental by the band we were talking about doing that called Ace Koden from the Flight. I think on Doug's Facebook page, if you go there, there's like a 15 or 16 minute tape from the rehearsal with a couple of songs with the vocals on there. So hopefully one day all of that will get seen by people and it'll be released. So we'll see what happens. We're going to run a little late here tonight because I have to get on a couple of new songs so I can report tomorrow for the Loud Chart. So I want to get them on and then we'll wrap it up. But hey, let me see. Who do we have on the show next week? Oh, next week we got Ripper on next week. Tim Ripper Owens is our guest next Sunday night. He's got a brand new record out. We'll also be talking to Kenny Eichman from Ivory Tiger and Orphan Allies, two great 80s underground bands all in one shot, so you can't beat that. So don't forget to tune in next Sunday night. Also, next Sunday night will be a year since I started to redo the show over here on Spreaker after being on Blog Talk Radio for 12 years and kind of taking a year or so off. Even though I did a lot of interviews during that year and a half, I put them up on YouTube, which I don't really use. Like, Spreaker automatically imports all my shows to YouTube. Half of them don't even get up there because of copyright infringements, which I never understood because I have the right to play all this music from the labels, but, YouTube is just a fucked up kind of place, so I don't really promote it. I don't advertise it. They just go up there. Whoever finds them, finds them. But the best place to hear the show is right here on Spreaker. And if you want to hear all the old shows from Blog Talk Radio over the previous 14 years, you can go to TalkShoe.com or just go to my website, the HeavyMetalMayhemRadioshow.com. There are links to all those shows up there. Blog Talk Radio wouldn't let me keep them on after I decided to leave there. They only let me keep about 10 shows up there. All right, let me see here. I have to say, if you want to know where all the festivals are going to be taking place throughout the U.S. and over in Europe this year, all you have to do is go to Riot's website or Riot City's website, because those two freaking bands play on every single festival. I mean, you would think these promoters would get together because you see them all chit-chatting back and forth on Facebook with each other. They go to each other's shows. They're very friendly with each other. You think they would sit down at the beginning of the year and have like a promoters conference and say, hey, look, let's not all book the same freaking bands every single year for the festivals over and over again. Let's try something different. There's a billion bands out there. There's millions of bands from the 80s that got back together that haven't played at these festivals yet. Let's try to get some of them on there. Why is it that Riot City and Riot 5 are on every single freaking festival that comes out? This year alone, Riot City and Riot 5 are on Headbangers Open Air, Blades of Steel, the Premium Warriors Festival, Hell's Heroes, Up the Hammer. Those are the festivals for this year. Those two bands are on every one of them. Visigoth is another band that's on every single festival. Clovenhoof and Excited seem to be the flavor of the month this year, so they're on a lot of the festivals. There are so many freaking bands out there. You're going to tell me you can't call up and get Ruthless to come play the show, or you can't call up and get another band to come on there and play? It's the same freaking bands, especially Riot 5 and Riot City. They're on every effing show that they could be out there. I think I'd rather see Carnivore AD on one of those shows. No, I'm just joking. I don't want to say those bands. I'm still baffled that Carnivore AD gets invited to play festivals. They're going over to Germany. What promoter in their right mind would spend the money to fly Carnivore AD, a Carnivore cover band, over to Germany to play Carnivore cover tunes? A band that had 2 records out. And let's be honest, I think the second record sucked. The band was trying to do like crossover stuff and go with whatever was popular at the time. It just didn't work in my opinion. But a Carnival cover band getting flown over to look at Joe Cangelosi, who played in Creator and Whiplash, and Joe's a good friend and I love him. He also talked a little shit about that band when they first got together. Why is this happening without any of the original members of Carnival in there? And he's being a part of it right now. But I get you're a musician, you want to play, but I just don't understand it. I mean, who's spending all that money to fly them? Is that big of a demand for Carnival AD in Germany that the fly? Maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overreacting to this. It's like the Kings of Thrash. Like, who wants to see David Ellefson and Jeff Young doing Megadeth when Megadeth are out there doing Megadeth? And if anybody has the least amount to claim to say anything about Megadeth, it's Jeff Young. The guy was in the band for about 18 months in the late 80s, played on one record with the band. And if anybody could right now tell me the name of one other band that Jeff Young played in, let me know, because I couldn't even tell you the name of one of the other bands he's played in. Not even me. So if you know the name of another band or any other record, I don't think he's ever played on any other record or been in a band that's put out a full-length record besides that Megadeth one. And he's been blabbing about saying he doesn't really give a shit what, Dave Mustaine thinks about the playing that. He's going to get all their money anyway because he wrote those songs. So when the DVD comes out that they recorded from the Whiskey A Go-Go show, all that money goes to Dave Mustaine. He says, how many people are buying the Kings of Thrash DVD from the Whiskey A Go-Go? Is that going to be such a hot seller that Dave Mustaine is going to go buy a new home with that money? What is it going to come out of that in money? I mean, how many are they actually going to sell of that DVD? This is the shit that pisses me off and makes me upset. I'm not even going to keep going on about that. Let's get to the music. All right, we got Brand New Overkill, Motorhead that was discovered, and we'll have to do some Night Demon. I know Iman's not happy about that, but we're going to have them. We're probably going to have them on the show real soon too, so just batten down the hatches, my friend. Here's Overkill, The Surgeon. What I heard of it so far sounds great.
I am the surgeon.
right, brand new Night Demon, Outsider. I gotta tell you, if somebody played that for me, I wouldn't even recognize who it was. It just sounds like a modern rock band to me. Something that's so generic. Doesn't sound like Night Demon at all. But it is what it is. Let's see what the rest of the record sounds like when it comes out. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here today. I want to thank Kurt Phillips for being on tonight's show. I love talking to Kurt. He's such a great guy. And when he does put out that metal record, we will have him back on here again. Next week, Ripper will be on the show. Kenny Eichman from Orphan Allies and Ivory Tiger. It's going to be a great February, so stick around, everybody. Come back next week. We're going to wrap it up here tonight with a little Death Dealer. We'll keep things up in Canada and the Great White North while we're here, and we'll do Caution to Kill, and then we're going to wrap it up. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I do appreciate it. I will see you guys next Sunday night. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.